In 2025, the label Made in USA seems no longer to be a global pride, but is gradually becoming a target for boycott.
For border communities, it's sort of like our parents in DC and Ottawa are fighting, and we're the ones suffering the consequences.
But I wonder if it is. So we just use the app, and it says yes, it's
American.
So American. Well, we'll try with that.
From Asia to Europe, from the Middle East to South America, a multitude of countries are simultaneously turning their backs on American products. Not because of quality, but because of something deeper: trust, reputation, and politics. In less than 12 months, US exports to key countries have dropped by more than 15%, according to the US Census Bureau. Some products that once dominated the international market, such as technology equipment, cars, packaged food, are now being removed from shelves, subjected to covert embargoes, or simply no longer being bought. This is no longer a matter for politicians to discuss behind closed doors. Each country turning its back is a powerful impact on American workers. Each boycotted product means a job lost, a family plunged into the survival spiral. In this video, we will explore the 10 countries leading the boycott of American products. Why are they doing this? Who is suffering the most? And what will happen if this wave continues to spread? Have you ever chosen to stop buying from a certain country? Or are you feeling the pressure right at your own job? Stay tuned until the end, because the next country might directly affect your life. Americans used to call Canada the polite neighbor, friendly, resilient, and one of America's most stable trade partners. But by 2025, that relationship is gradually fading, like a cup of coffee left to cool on the table, no longer warm or strong. No loud protests, no harsh statements. It's just that a series of supermarkets in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal have started prioritizing local products. It's just that Canadian consumers are steering clear of McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and even Apple. According to data from Statistics Canada, imports of consumer goods from the US fell by 8.4% in the first 4 months of 2025, the largest decline in over a decade. The cause does not lie in the quality of the products, but in emotions. Emotions about the imbalance in trade relations and a new generation of Canadians wanting to redefine the value of national pride. And the consequences are no longer just your country's problem. In the state of Iowa, a 62-year-old farmer who used to export soybeans to Canada shared that he just had to lay off 4 workers. "They are the people I have worked with for the past 20 years, he said. "But the orders from the north keep dwindling. I can't keep them if there are no contracts." This is not just a loss of income. It's the loss of a sense of security, the loss of the once strong connections between communities. When Canada turned its back, Americans didn't just lose a customer. They lost a part of the memory of a prosperous era, where everything seemed more trustworthy. In a time of great instability, some small American brands are still doing things differently, like Thrive Market, with a subsidy program for organic food for elderly people in rural areas. If you want to learn more, the link can be found in the video description. But the big question still remains. In an increasingly fragile world, has trust become the most valuable commodity? Do you remember the last time you chose to buy American products instead of imported ones? What made you do that? Please share in the comments, because each personal story can serve as a collective reminder. And if you think that's just the reaction of a neighboring country, then France, the symbol of European excellence, will make you reconsider the concept of global consumer taste. You won't see big slogans on the streets of Paris, nor will there be loud boycott waves like in trade crises. But if you pay close attention, you will notice that the French are quietly withdrawing from the world of American goods, just like how they fold an old newspaper, set it aside, and choose to read something else. French consumers, known for their aesthetic taste and cultural awareness, have been making new choices every day. Not because they have stopped loving America, but because they no longer see themselves in the products labeled American Dream. According to a survey by Le Monde, in 2025, more than 1/3 of the French declared that they actively avoid using American products from fast fashion to movies and technology. Especially in cities like Lyon or Strasbourg, the number of people unsubscribing from American streaming platforms increased by 23% in the first quarter of the year. A 62-year-old high school teacher in Marseille recounted that he used to be a huge fan of 80s American movies. But now, he has switched to watching French documentaries, listening to classical music, and using a local phone, not out of defiance, but because he wants to return to things with depth and empathy for his way of life. That's not resistance. That is a deliberate choice, and very quiet. In the long run, this is a thought-provoking reminder for American brands. Why are products that once led in inspiration and creativity now seen as too loud, too commercial, too foreign? Why has a global brand lost its connection with the European soul? Many brands have started to adjust. Netflix France has launched more French content, collaborating with local directors. Levi's Europe launched the Refit Local program, customizing products according to the tastes of each city. Airbnb sponsors local cultural experience tours for the elderly in Bordeaux, aiming to maintain a close-knit image, not just commercial. Small changes, but they evoke what was once America's strength, the ability to listen and adapt. And perhaps, this is the most important question. Are we losing our connection with those who once loved us, not because of price, but because they no longer feel heard? Do you agree with the way the French reject American products, not through words, but through their dignified consumer behavior? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Next will be a country considered a symbol of technology in the world, but is gradually cutting each thread of connection with American goods. In the automotive industry, the symbol of Germany, a wave of supply chain autonomy is taking place strongly. Mercedes-Benz and BMW have cut chip orders from American suppliers by up to 41% in the first half of 2025, according to Reuters, replacing them with domestic components or those from EU partners. This is not just a strategic decision. It is a restructuring of the foundation of trust in self-reliance. A 58-year-old engineer in Berlin, who used to handle technical communications between a German car manufacturer and Intel, lost his job after the contract was terminated. He said, "No one loves America anymore. But German businesses now need things that are controllable, stable, and close. We don't have time to wait for the fluctuations from Washington." That is the sorrow of a generation that grew up with faith in transoceanic cooperation. Many American tech companies are losing contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars, which were once considered default. States like Oregon and Texas, where chip factories are located, recorded a 12% drop in orders from Europe in the second quarter. And American workers, especially middle-aged individuals in the tech industry, are feeling lost in a market where Made in USA is no longer a priority. But it's not without hope. Some American brands are changing their approach. Qualcomm Germany opened an R&D center right in Stuttgart, hiring local engineers to bridge cultural and political gaps. HP launched the Tech with Purpose campaign in Europe, donating equipment to vocational schools, boosting goodwill with the new generation. And platforms like Coursera, in collaboration with training institutes in Frankfurt, are offering free technical courses for people aged 50 and above. That's how American technology can regain trust, not through branding, but through proximity. Can an industry continue to thrive without the US? Or the real question is, are we ready to rebuild trust, not just through products, but through respect and long-term sharing? What do you think? Have you ever worked in the engineering, technology, or manufacturing industry? Have you seen how the market has changed over the past 10 years? And now, ahead of us will be a closely allied nation, but quietly turning its back on Starbucks, Amazon, and the once beloved American brands. If you are still watching up to this point, you truly care about how the world is changing with America. The next section will keep you glued to the screen, because you might have experienced this feeling yourself. The Japanese don't get angry loudly. They don't write boycott hashtags. They also didn't take to the streets to protest American products. They just gently placed the Starbucks cup down, not looking back. No explanations. Just like how people pull their hands away from the winter stream because it is no longer warm. Without any grand declarations, Japan's silence is sending a clearer message than any slogan. Data from Nikkei Asia shows the percentage of young Japanese using Amazon has decreased by 31% over the past 12 months, and the number of customers returning to American coffee chains like Starbucks has steadily declined each quarter. But it's not because they don't like coffee, but because they feel they are no longer a part of that brand story. A 70-year-old man in Kyoto, who used to drink Starbucks every morning for 15 years, has now returned to a traditional coffee shop in a small alley near his home. He shared, "I don't know why, but the coffee there makes me remember who I am." For the generation that once looked to America as a model after the war, this turning away is not anger, but a nameless sorrow. American brands that once represented modernity, creativity, and cool have now become distant and soulless in the eyes of the Japanese. American companies are losing their place not only in consumers' wallets, but also in their hearts. And worse, the younger generation in Japan is growing up without the same fond memories of American brands that their parents had. But there is still hope, an opportunity. Starbucks Japan has started reopening quiet cafes, serving only the elderly and those who appreciate tranquility, with architecture inspired by Japanese Zen. Apple is sponsoring technology scholarships for rural schools in Japan, helping the older and younger generations access technology in a gentle and humane way. And Amazon Japan launched the Delivery with Grandparents program, allowing elderly people to register as part-time shippers near their homes. Small things, but a commendable effort to mend connections that seem to have frayed. Can a brand become a part of a culture if it no longer listens to that culture? Or is global presence just a facade if there are no emotional ties within? Have you ever felt a brand you used to love becoming more and more unfamiliar over time? If Japan chooses silence, then China, on the contrary, they boycott systematically, strategically, and globally. Don't miss the next part. In the first quarter of 2025, iPhone sales in China fell by 11.1%, causing Apple to drop to the 5th position in the smartphone market, with a market share of only 13.7%. Nike reported a 17% decline in revenue in China during the same period, marking the steepest drop among the company's global regions. The above figures not only reflect fierce competition from domestic brands like Xiaomi and Huawei, but also indicate a shift in the consumption behavior of the Chinese people. A 45-year-old phone shop owner in Shanghai shared that, in the past, iPhones accounted for more than 60% of the store's sales. However, nowadays, customers are mainly interested in domestic phone models with affordable prices and suitable features. He said, "My customers no longer ask about the iPhone. They want to know about the new phone models from Xiaomi or Huawei." American brands, which once held a dominant position in the world's most populous market, are gradually losing their foothold not only in the technology sector, but also in fashion, fast food, and everyday consumer goods. But the more concerning issue lies not in the financial figures, but in the erosion of brand trust. When consumers no longer see American products as symbols of quality, modernity, or prestige, all advertising efforts become meaningless. This creates a profound challenge. Are American companies agile and humble enough to adapt? To listen to the market instead of trying to control it? If they don't change, they won't just lose market share. They could be quietly but completely eliminated from the game. And in this race to regain trust, it's not the best product that wins. It's the brand that understands consumers the most. Some American brands have started adjusting their strategies to adapt to the Chinese market. Apple has launched significant discount programs on Chinese e-commerce platforms, with reductions of up to $351 for iPhone 16 models. Nike is focusing on developing products that cater to local tastes and enhancing marketing activities in China. Can American brands maintain their position in China if they do not quickly adapt to changes in consumer behavior and the country's economic policies? What do you think about the changes in the Chinese market regarding American products? What do you think American brands should do to regain the trust of Chinese consumers? Next, we will turn to a country that once viewed American goods as a symbol of modernity, but is now gradually turning its back. Let's explore the story in Brazil. The 62-year-old man used to run an appliance store in São Paulo for nearly 3 decades. He used to believe that if it was American-made, it was reliable. General Electric refrigerators, Whirlpool microwaves, Hoover vacuum cleaners, all used to be advertisement-free names in his store. But then customers started shaking their heads. Young people walk in, asking about cheaper domestic products or more feature-rich Asian brands. As for the older people, they click their tongues. It's not like it used to be. The prices are high and the warranty is a hassle. According to data from Forbes Brazil, in just the first half of 2025, Walmart closed 20% of its stores in major cities like Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, and Porto Alegre. American fast food chains like Burger King and Subway recorded a revenue decline of 14 to 19%, especially in middle-class urban areas. The keyword produtos nacionais has surged on e-commerce platforms, surpassing even major American brands in search volume. The issue is not with the product quality, but with the feeling of being disconnected. Brazilian consumers, who are rich in emotion and value closeness, increasingly feel that American products no longer represent them. Not because American products have become worse, but because other options are understanding the locals better. From coffee preferences to advertising language, everything that was very American now feels distant. Some brands are trying to adapt. Procter & Gamble Brazil has switched to using local ingredients, combined with the elderly caregiver support program in the southern states. Levi's Brazil launched the Costura da Vida campaign, allowing people to exchange old clothes for discounts on new purchases, targeting retirees who need to save money. Coca-Cola Brazil is testing a lower sugar, smaller bottled version, suitable for the elderly and diabetes patients, as a way to reconnect. The question is not just how to sell American products in Brazil again, but rather how to make Brazilians feel that they are not just customers, but friends who are understood. What do you think? If you ever lived in a place where American products were once a symbol, do you still feel that connection? If you're still watching up to this point, you truly care about how the world is changing with America. The next section will keep you glued to the screen, because you might have experienced this feeling yourself. Next is another massive country, where the younger generation is quietly saying no to the American brand and choosing a completely different path. India. In Indian culture, there is a familiar image: the sacred Ganges River. Though quiet, it always flows in its own way. Not noisy, no rush. It's just that day by day, the water no longer flows through the old banks, but finds a new direction, more suitable, more familiar, more timely. That is also how young Indian consumers are moving away from the orbit of American brands. No protests, no loud boycotts. They just choose to buy something else. A 21-year-old student in Mumbai, part of the Gen Z generation, smart and full of national pride, just traded in an old iPhone to buy a new Xiaomi phone. Not because it was cheaper, but because he feels that the phone understands him better, from the interface, features, to how it fits into his daily life. I don't need to show off my phone anymore. I need something that supports me, speaks my language, he shared. And this is not an isolated case. According to India Today and the Economic Times, 27% of Indian consumers have stated that they will avoid using American products in 2025. American brands like Apple, Amazon, and Levi's have recorded a 10 to 18% decline in revenue among the 18 to 35 age group. Meanwhile, downloads of domestic apps like JioMart, Myntra, and BharatP have skyrocketed, surpassing 200 million monthly active users. Why is there this change? Because American brands, once symbols of modernity and global reach, are gradually being seen as no longer relevant to Indian life. This market does not need a global model. They need recognition, relevance, and a local voice. And in a country with over 22 official languages and more than 1.4 billion people, any brand that doesn't understand this will gradually be washed away like sand in the water. Can a global brand truly live in India if it doesn't learn to speak the same language as the people here? What do you think? What do you think? If you are an older American, did you ever expect that American brands would always be beloved everywhere? India is diverging because they need to be heard. But Mexico is different. They demand fairness, and the way they react might startle many Americans. Can a relationship that has lasted for decades, no matter how close, continue to exist if only one side always benefits more? And if you are the neighbor, hardworking, dedicated, always ready to produce, process, and consume, but rarely listen to, will you continue to remain silent? That is the mindset that an increasing number of Mexicans are adopting. According to statistics from the Wall Street Journal, in just the first quarter of 2025, the amount of corn imported from the U.S. into Mexico decreased by 22%, as Mexican agricultural organizations called for prioritizing domestic agricultural products. At the same time, revenue from American supermarket chains like Walmart and Sam's Club decreased by 11 to 16% in central Mexico, where the proportion of middle-class consumers is rapidly increasing. The consequences do not stop at exports. Many American companies are losing outsourcing contracts as the Mexican government encourages domestic businesses to expand production. Young workers no longer see working for American companies as the safe dream it once was. They want to be owners, not employees. And consumers, especially those over 50, are starting to prefer domestic brands because they understand us better. Some American brands are proactively adjusting. General Motors Mexico is committed to increasing the proportion of domestically produced components to 60% by the end of the year. PepsiCo is launching the Nutriendo Mexico program, supporting school meals for children and the elderly. This is not just a way to maintain market share, but a way to say, we still want to be part of it. And the question remains, are we, as Americans, truly viewing our neighboring countries as partners? Or just a place to buy cheap and sell high? What do you think? Have you ever been to Mexico? Or do you have relatives working with Mexican partners? Do you sense the change in that relationship? Let's go to the Netherlands, a small country, but one that sends very strong messages about consumer ethics and the environment, with the way they are treating American brands. We often think that consumer decisions revolve only around price, quality, and convenience. But in the Netherlands, more and more consumers are making choices based on a completely different criterion. Does this product reflect the values I believe in? And unfortunately, for many American brands, the answer is no. A 63-year-old retiree in Rotterdam, a former chemical engineer, shared, "I used to buy American products because I believed they were the world standard. But now I read the labels carefully. I research the brands. I choose products that reflect my concerns for the environment and society." The US is gradually losing its place in the hearts of a group of civilized, quiet consumers who wield significant influence, those who make decisions based on knowledge, not habit. Brands that were once accustomed to leading the market now have to explain, prove, and even apologize. And in Europe, the Netherlands is seen as the beacon of ethics. Their turning away can create a strong ripple effect on neighboring countries like Belgium, Germany, and France. And the final question for us, if ethics, transparency, and sustainability are becoming the new global standards, are American brands ready to change so as not to be left behind? And now, we will arrive at our final stop. Australia, a country that was once a steadfast ally, is now gradually questioning the fairness and trust in American products. According to ABC News Australia and The Guardian, in just the second quarter of 2025, the market share of American consumer goods in Australia decreased by 12% in the electronics sector and over 18% in fashion, the largest drop in 5 years. The search rate for keywords like fair trade, locally made, and ethical sourcing has increased by up to 49%. Chains like Kmart and JB Hi-Fi have started reducing imports from American brands that do not meet ethical or environmental standards due to pressure from the consumer community. Older consumers, who were once a loyal group, are now abandoning American brands because they feel overlooked. Indigenous communities, retirees, and rural residents are calling for a boycott of products that only think about profit. Trust, once the strongest asset of American brands in Australia, is being eroded layer by layer. However, a few names are still trying to regain their position. Microsoft Australia collaborates with the government to offer free digital courses for retirees. Colgate-Palmolive invests in a clean supply chain in Australia, committing to not using exploitative labor from any region. Those efforts, though small, are a way to say, we still want to stand by you. And if you ever believed that American products were the gold standard, then here is a question to ponder. Does the national brand still hold value if it doesn't come with transparency, respect, and ethics in every product? What do you think? Do you still believe in the American value in every product like before? 10 countries, 10 stories. Not outrage, not sanctions, but silent withdrawals, yet profound. People around the world no longer buy American products just because they are American. They buy, or don't buy, because of the feeling of being respected, understood, and accompanied. And perhaps the saddest thing is not the decline in sales, but rather the feeling of losing a position that was once a source of pride, not because of strength, but because of trust. For middle-aged and older viewers watching this video, you may have grown up with Coca-Cola, Levi's, McDonald's. Once viewed American goods as symbols of freedom, prosperity, and resilience. But now, when you look at the numbers, at the reactions from Canada, France, Germany, Japan, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, the Netherlands, and Australia, do you still see that image intact? Perhaps this is the time for us, as consumers, as Americans, to ask the question, can we restore trust? Not through advertising, but through action, transparency, and kindness? Have you ever changed your consumption habits for ethical or spiritual reasons? And if so, what made you make that decision? Please share below. If this video makes you reflect, please share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel to continue joining us in exploring the silent yet significant movements of the world, from the perspective of those who live long, understand deeply, and care genuinely. This video is based on consumer data and trends published by international media sources and independent research organizations. We do not represent any government, business, or organization, and do not aim to criticize or promote extreme boycotting behavior. All analyses in the video are objective, reflecting a synthesis of data, and encourage viewers to make their own personal assessments.